Hello. So in this video, we're going to look at using the TI calculator for just some basic evaluations of angles and also just an inverse. So you can kind of see how to use your calculator. So the first thing you want to notice is that this button next to the second button, the mode button, is extremely important because when you go here down to between radian and mode, you've got to tell the calculator, well, the angle that I'm inputting, and by the way, the input to a trigonometric function is always an angle. So you're saying, hey, the angle is being measured in either degrees or radians. And it's okay if you don't know what radians are yet, but you have to just know that the modes are there. All right, so let's do a couple of examples. Suppose I ask for sine of 17.8 degrees. And so what do? So you quit out of this, right? Go to your home screen. And now you're looking for the sine button, and notice that above the sine, cosine, and tangent are the inverses. And notice also that those are the only 3 trig buttons that you have. You don't have all 6 functions, you just have those 3. So you would put sine 17.8, and the calculator knows it's degrees. You can either close it or not. I'm not going to close it just so you can see you get the same answer right there. And then if I did it where I closed it, same answer, right? 0.30569, which we'll round to 3057. And what that's saying is, remember, this is the, if you recall, the sine of an angle is the length of the opposite side of the right triangle to the hypotenuse. So this is basically saying that the opposite side, the length of the opposite side, is a little less than 1/3 the length of the hypotenuse on your right triangle, just to give you context. All right, so you try, and then we'll do it together. Tangent 45 degrees. See what you get. So here I would do tangent 45, enter, I get 1. That's a real important one. All right, and let's do one last one so that you can feel confident. Cosine of 48 degrees, you find that, and then tell me what you get, so to speak. All right, so we're going to do cosine 48 degrees, and I get 0.6691. Okay? Now, what happens if you're asked for something like secant of 48 degrees? Well, now remember, you have reciprocals, right? So if you recall, what's the reciprocal of secant? Is it sine, cosine, or tangent? Well, it's cosine. And basically what we know is that secant of 48 degrees is the same thing as the reciprocal, right? 1 over cosine of 48 degrees. And reciprocal just means you're taking 1 over the number. So in theory, what I could do, since I know that and I already found cosine of 48 degrees, I could take 1 divided by, and then I can do second answer where it pulls down this answer, right? So second answer, and I get 1.4945. Or what you could do, so we found the cosine and then we found 1 over the cosine. Or you could do it all at once. You could just say 1 divided by the cosine of 48, right? If you want to make it more comfortable, just close the parentheses. You don't have to, but, and notice you get the same answer. So that's how you handle the reciprocal functions, because they're not given, right? They're not given. So try cosecant of 15 degrees and see what you get, and then we'll do it. All right, so what we'll do, let me clear some of this out. The reciprocal of cosecant is what? Sine. So you're going to take 1 divided by the sine of 15 degrees, and you should get 3.86370. Make sure I wrote that right. 3.86370. Yep. Okay. So that's how you're working with just the modes, basically, and we're doing a degree mode and the reciprocal functions, really. We're focusing on that right now. Now, there is, I can't really call it a mode, maybe it's a mode, but remember there's DMS, degrees, minutes, and seconds. Now, you do have these in your calculator. Let me show you where they are. Angle, so if you do second apps, you'll get the angle. And notice you got your degree and you got your minutes, but you don't have seconds. Seconds is a lot harder to find. It's above the plus sign, and it's in green, not blue, so it's commanded by the alpha button. Now, I'll be honest with you, I never remember this. I'm showing you this because I'm making the video. But let's say we had, you were asked to do tangent of 43 degrees, 21 minutes, and 18 seconds. So this whole thing is your angle. That's like theta, right? And remember, the input to a trig function is always an angle. So you're finding the tangent of this angle here. And I'm going to show you first what I do, because I don't remember where, you know, the minutes and seconds and all that. I don't remember where these buttons are. But what I do know, and this is something, of course, you know, commit to memory, is that 1 degree is parsed or split into 60 minutes, right? And these minutes are not the minutes on your clock. They're rotations. You know, it's a different, it's for an astronomical measure. And then what we know is that 1 minute is 60 seconds. And again, these seconds are not like the seconds on your clock. Okay. Now, which means that if I say 1 degree and I say, okay, I'm going to multiply by 1, but I'm going to say that in 1 degree there's 60 minutes, and then there's what, in 1 minute there's 60 seconds. So in 1 degree, 60 times 60 is 3,600. So 1 degree is 3,600 seconds, right? So I'll show you what I do, because I just can't remember all this stuff. So I say, okay, we're in degree mode, right? You check your mode. You're in degree mode. And then you say, okay, tangent. And now you have a 43 degrees. And then it's 21, so plus 21 minutes, but that's divided by 60 because I want to put it all in degrees. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm already changing this to degrees and that to degrees, and entering this is 1 decimal degrees, what I'm really doing. Plus, and then I have 18 out of 3,600 seconds. So I'm really doing that. And what I get is 0.9442. Okay. Now, I'll show you. So I do it that way. I do it when I'm working word problems and all that. That's what I do. I enter the angle and whatever. Usually that you don't even deal with seconds. You deal with minutes. I put the whole degree plus whatever seconds there are over 60. So that converts that into decimal degrees. Now, if I did this the other way, where I'm using the functions on your calculator, I would say tangent of 43, but then I have to tell the calculator each number, what does it represent? So now that part's the whole degree. So I got to go to angle. I go to second, angle, and I choose degree. And I say, well, that part, 43, is degrees. And then I put in the 21. So I go, and the next part is 21, and I want to say seconds. So I go second, angle, and I choose number 2. So I label or tell the calculator, oh, that number 21 is seconds. And then I have 21 minutes. Then you have 18 seconds. And remember, that's way over here. So I have to do this, press the alpha button, and then that. And then finally you can see it. And now when I press enter, I get the same number. But to me, that's just a lot to remember. I just can't remember it all. It's too hard. I only did that for this video. All right, so that's another part of your how to use your calculator. And then also what we want to look at, oh, let me let you guys try one. Try, just so you see what you get. Secant of 233 degrees and 18 minutes. See what you get. All right, so secant is the reciprocal cosine, so I'm going to do 1 divided by cosine, and now I'll put the angle in 233. That's the decimal, I'm sorry, that's the whole degree part. And then there's 18 out of what? 60, right? What? I should have, oh, I didn't do it in the other way, sorry. All right, so there you go, negative 1.673, that's right. 0.6733, that's good enough. And then if we do it the other way, you would do, you still have to do the 1 divided by cosine, but then you got to put your 233, you do your second angle, call that a degree, and then the 18, go to second angle, and tell the calculator that's minutes. There you go, okay? So that was just to make sure we got that. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to address is, so far every example we've done, we were given an angle. Remember, the input to every trig function is an angle. I keep saying that. But sometimes what you have is maybe you have a word problem that's something like this, right? Or some kind of problem you're working with. And you know that this length is, let's say, 12, and this length is 9. And let's say you're looking relative to, let's go ahead and do this, theta, which is here. I just knocked the, and make sure you can see everything. Yeah, okay. All right, and they want to know this angle theta. So here, this example is different because every other example in this video, you were given the angle and you were asked for the trig ratio of that angle, which means what two sides, right, are we picking and in what order? But this time you're asked for the angle. So what you have to first do is figure out, well, what trig function do I want to use? And that's based always, the sides are always relative to whatever angle you're using. So relative to this angle, across from it is opposite. And then always across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. So, and then here, adjacent, it cuts through the sides. So there's the adjacent, opposite, and hypotenuse labeled. So what's happening is you're being given 12 and 9. So if you want, I would probably want to use one of the 3 buttons I have, which is sine, cosine, or tangent. And if you know your 6 trig ratios, which one of those 3 uses adjacent and opposite? Well, it's tangent. So tangent of an angle is opposite over adjacent, okay? So in this case, I'm looking for tangent of an angle, which is opposite 9 over adjacent 12, okay? But I'm looking for the angle, which means I have to undo the tangent, right? So let me just do a little aside. Why am I saying undo? Because it's kind of like in algebra, if you had 3x equals, let's say, 10, you're trying to get x, you have to undo the 3, and what's the 3 doing? It's multiplying to the x, so you do what? You divide, right? So you're finding this, so the inverse of multiplication is division, and these undo each other, and now you're left with x equals 10/3, right? That's what we want to do here. But tangent is, so what is happening to the angle? You're taking the tangent of it, which means you're extracting information from the right triangle in a specific order. You're saying opposite over adjacent. So you want to undo the tangent, which would be the inverse of tangent. So this is what theoretically you're doing. Inverse of tangent to both sides. Okay. And now this undoes that. And what this is this is f inverse f of x. If you remember, for algebra is x. Make sure you can see all that. Yeah. Okay. So now in the calculator, we're going to put this in, but what happens, these two cancel each other out, and you're saying theta is equal to the inverse tangent of 9 over 12. And that'll give you your angle in degrees because we're in degree mode. So here you want to go to inverse tangent. So you go second tangent, 9 divided by 12. And it's 36, it depends on what accuracy you want. Let's say 36.9 degrees. Like that, okay? So let's say, let me let you guys try one. You have something that's like this. And let's say this is theta. Here's your right angle. And let's say I give you that, okay? So I want you to find that angle. So go ahead and pause the video and find that angle. I'm assuming you paused it. So what I'm going to do is relative to that angle, always across from the right angle is the hypotenuse, right? And then across from the angle that you're working with, that's opposite. And then here, this is adjacent, okay? So what's happening is you're working with two sides that you have numbers for. You have the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So which functions work with that, adjacent and hypotenuse? Well, that would be cosine and secant, but because my buttons on my calculator are what? They're sine, cosine, and tangent, I'd rather work with cosine. So I'm going to say cosine of the angle I'm looking for is defined as adjacent over hypotenuse. So the cosine I'm looking for the angle I'm looking for, is adjacent, which is 4, over hypotenuse, which is 9. And so now, remember what we're doing here is we're taking the inverse cosine of both sides. Like that. And so the angle you're looking for is the inverse cosine of 4/9. And let's see what that is. So here's cosine, there's the inverse cosine. I go secant, inverse cosine. So there we go. Of 4 divided by 9, 63 degrees. And 0.61, it's not minutes, it's 0.61 of a degree. Okay, that's it. Okay. Thanks so much for listening.